This is the Celestron EdgeHD Evolution. Wait, hold on. I think I got that wrong. It's a Celestron Evolution HD. Essentially, it's Celestron's EdgeHD 8-inch on their Evolution mount. This thing is a workhorse. You can use it for visual. You can use it for astrophotography. You can get a reducer for the back. And then tonight what we're going to be doing is putting a HyperStar on the front. That takes this SCT, or Schmidt-Cassegrain, way into the future, allowing it to convert from an F10 SCT to an F2. The F ratio refers to how long the focal length is versus the aperture. And you'll see on these, it's usually printed right on the front. Right here it says Celestron 8-inch, 203 millimeters. And it doesn't have the focal length. Oh, because this is it has the dew heater on it. So we're going to take this under the knife and do some modifications to it. When people ask me, hey, what's a good starter telescope? I know that for astrophotography, everyone always says, get a really short focal length, right? Like, 60 millimeter or something like that. And I would have to probably agree for astrophotography. But for visual, this is such a nice scope to start with. And let's see if that F2 is really forgiving when it comes to things like guiding and stuff like that. So we're going to take this to the bench. We're going to make some changes. We're not using the Evolution mount. If you're interested in like a long-term review of the Evolution mount and this whole system as it is, let me know. We have used this setup in a couple of videos, which I'll put cards up here and here, where we compared it to C-Star. But yeah, let's get into it and start chopping this thing up. All right, this thing may be compact, but it looks huge on my workbench. I got to figure something else out for future videos when I'm working with some of the bigger gear like this. But for now, we're going to make do. So to get started, we need to take, this is the StarSense Auto Guider. We're not using this because we're not using a Celestron mount. So we just loosen this, take this off. This does guiding. It's actually pretty nice, but we're using the Ioptron SEM 40 tonight because when you're imaging at F10, you really need it to be as precise as possible. My Ioptron SEM 40 has a different rail on it, so we need to change this rail out here. This is what's called a Vixen style dovetail. And what we need to put on here instead is this Losmandy style dovetail, which is what like my big Edge 11 uses. So to do that, we've got to take some caps and covers off. So this is just a beauty plate that comes off here. Actually looks really cool. And we take some of these bolts out. There should just be 3 bolts, 1 in the front, 2 in the rear. They are different threads. Do not mix them up in case, this isn't a DIY video necessarily, but in case you do ever do this, keep track of where each of those bolts came out of. They're also a different size. So the front one, for anyone paying attention, is 4 millimeters, and the back 2 are 3.5 millimeters. Not sure why, but they are different sizes. So we're just gonna go ahead and get those out of there. And there we go. And we're gonna make sure don't lose these washers that are in here. There's like little, there we go. Keep those with the screws. And that's not all the sizes that you need. Because this is made for, you've got the 2 screw holes here for the Vixen rail. These 2 outer ones are for the Losmandy. There's little grub screws in there just to keep light from entering in or water or whatever. So we have to move these from the outside to the inside because we need those 2 outside holes because those are the ones that the bigger plate uses. So we're just gonna move those over. Don't screw them all the way in. They should just be flush with the surface. Because in theory, I think you probably could over screw them and then they just fall in, and that'll be a really bad day. Put the replacement plate on top. We'll start with the front screw, which I gotta switch Allen keys again. Start with the front one. Get this lined up. Where is this? It's really hard to do. There we go. Get that one lined up, and then the 2 rear ones, we'll get those in as well. Don't tighten them all the way until you've got all screws in and sort of snug. Then you can tighten. You don't want to accidentally tighten one all the way while the plate's like crooked or something, because then you won't be able to get the other ones in. So there we go. Just gonna tighten that. Now that they're all in and sort of snug, we're gonna give them a little bit of torque here, not a ton. I'm just using, you know, this side doesn't let me put too much torque on it. But you also don't want these to be loose because, well, you don't want your telescope to fall off your mount. All right, there we go. All right, that was step 1. We can move some of this tools out of the way. Step 2 is going to be, we want to replace this auto guider bracket with just a regular, I think it's called a Cinta style, or like a guide scope bracket. But these are pretty easy to do. You just take these, unscrew these. I think the Evolution actually originally came with a Cinta style bracket, but I had put this one on because I wanted to use the auto guider. So we're gonna switch it back basically. So you may not have to do this step. You may already have this guy. So just gonna put this in its place. Come on, screwdriver. So we're going to do this one standing up. This is the focus motor, so, or where the focus motor is going to go. So you're just going to take these 3 screws out here. There we go. And then this orange plate's going to come off. You need to find somewhere to store this in case you ever want to switch back to that. All right. Sorry for the quick cut. There was a gotcha here. When I did this install on a C11, I took the orange plate off and then put it away. But what I just realized is if you put this plate on here that they provide you, this center hole is too big. It allows the actual entire, I don't know if you can see this, it allows the entire shaft to come out. That's not great. So what we need to do is leave the orange plate there on a C8 and then put this plate on top. And I'm not sure they care. Yeah, no, it's got to go this way. So you can see it's got this profile sticking out. That goes down on the C8. And they include 3 new screws. So let's try that out. Then, see if I got the right monkey laying out. I do not get a one. It's not 3.5, and it's not 2. Maybe 3. Let's try monkeys. Let's try 3. Oh, it's 2.5. Yep, it's 2.5. So let's put this on these 2.5 videos, which is size. But that's not a little job. You're trying to focus on C8. You got to make sure to leave one plate. There we go. I guess if you don't do that, you probably wouldn't notice anything first, but you're back to huge. So let's do this. And it's nice and secured. Give it a couple spins. It spins freely. And let's switch back to sort of horizontal mode here at the desk so that we can finish this install. I'm going to store these 3 screws along with, store the 3 screws you pulled out along with the rubber cap somewhere safe so that if you ever want to undo this, you can. Let's lay this guy down here like that. Gives us access to see. Here's the bottom part of the bracket. Now we need to finish the assembly. So this isn't a ZWO focus motor, but it is a ZWO focus motor install kit. This is a Gemini one. It comes with that plate we just installed, as well as this one, which looks like a, I don't know, weird spaceship fin, and then this bracket right here. So what I like to do is pop this bracket on here. Sometimes they come pre-assembled, sometimes they don't. And I may just end up fast forwarding through all of this so that you don't have to listen to me ramble. And this won't end up being a 30-minute long video about installing a focus motor. We've got, it's now actually dark outside, so I really just want to get this thing out there and start taking some images. The moon's out, it's pretty bright, but that should be fine. We're just testing anyway. You have to have a lot of Allen keys just laying around to be able to do these jobs. Okay. I'm going to pop that in there. It wants to sit about there. So you can see this, this fin system here has a lot of different places you can mount it. And when you put it on here, it'll tell you how far in you want to go, because that's how far in it goes. And then you want to back it out just a hair to the nearest holes that are just a little bit further out. You don't want that flexible coupler to be like binding or anything. So you want to give it just a little bit of space. And then I have to do this blind. Why am I doing this blind? I can just rotate this. There we go. Let's do it that way. Ooh, that whole thing is moving around. I might want to tighten that a little bit more. Okay. Pop these 2 screws back in. These should be really tight. This is one of those critical junctures that's going to make sure you don't get super crazy back focus, or I'm sorry, backlash on your focuser. And then make sure that's snug. It's not. These little guys in here are a little on the loose side. So I want to tighten these up just a hair more. If you tighten them too much, it will bind. Like it'll sort of squeeze the outside of the bearing, and you won't be able to actually turn the focuser. So don't go too crazy. Just snug. Okay, that's all nice and secured. Now you want to tighten this coupler to the shaft, and to do that you just tighten in pretty snug on these like set screws essentially. There we go, there's one. And there should be 2, so make sure you get both of them. And woof. There we go. There's 2. Okay, that is all of the modifications we need to make besides actually installing the HyperStar. And to do that, we need to take the, we'll actually do that at the scope once it's mounted. I don't want to do it here because it adds the length of the HyperStar to the front of it. So let me move this. I'm going to show you guys what the HyperStar looks like in case you're not familiar. It's made by a company called Starizona. They're an American company. They're actually in Arizona. And they usually come in a nice case like this. And this is the HyperStar HD C8 V4. There's been a bunch of different revisions. This is the 4th one. It puts the scope at f1.9 with a focal length of 390 millimeters. This one that I have has the optional filter holder on here, which is nice because this spacing here is very important, and they give you all the little adapters and everything you need to get the spacing just right. This replaces the secondary mirror on the telescope, which is not the big one in the back, it's the little one in the middle. And it replaces that with like a bunch of glass elements. And what's essentially happening here is it's correcting all of the aberrations and everything that come off that secondary mirror. And this glass is just precisely designed to take care of all of that and allows you to image right off the front. So I'm going to go get this set up, and then I think next we'll probably be looking at the results. So wish me luck. I'm going to go get this thing out there, and we're going to be using the SV Bony 605cc. This is basically the same as the ZWO ASI 533MC, so the 533 color sensor. It's the same density and pixel size as the 2600, but it's a lot smaller sensor. This is going to help us both at HyperStar and at f10 to it's just a lot nicer to not have to try and get all the way outside on the edges of a big APS-C sensor to be perfectly collimated and focused. So it's a little bit cheating. But yeah, this is the SV Bony one. It doesn't have the hub on the back like the ZWO ones, but it is quite a bit cheaper. And they usually run these on sale. So I like this camera. This is actually the first cooled Astro Cam that I ever bought. And it's still kicking around. I think I've had it for about a year. I've taken it with me all over the world, actually. So we're going to use this for both f2 imaging and f10 imaging. And I think we're going to shoot the Bubble Nebula, which is this really cool target I've been trying to get with the C11, the big telescope at mono. But we'll be using the SV Bony SV220 filter with it. Because the moon, I'll put the all sky camera up in the corner. The moon is very bright tonight, and we need to bring that down. So we're going to use this dual narrowband filter. Here's the wavelength chart showing that it really just lets light through at those two, and that should help us in theory. Although I don't know, I feel like at f2 it's just going to collect a bunch of light. I think that's the point. So we'll see how washed out it looks. All right, let's see what happens. All right, we've got about a night and a half's worth of data. I've got some notes from the HyperStar. So the backlash is not too bad messing with that. It's about the same as you would mess with at full focal length for something like a C8, so it's not that bad. The collimation out of the box was good enough. I think if I was to keep it on there longer term, I would probably play with it a little bit. But for the images that I grabbed, it was fine. It seemed like it was going to be pretty easy to do collimation. If you've ever done collimation on an SCT, you know, it's basically the same thing. There's those 3 screws, except it's like a push-pull as opposed to on like your secondary where it's just a single screw for each axis. There's 2 for each axis, but honestly, it looks pretty simple. And it was finicky with spacing. I had to add a 0.6 millimeter spacer to try and get back focus good, and I got it good, but again, I think I would play with it more if this was going to be more long-term setup. But I was afraid to put the HyperStar on there for a little bit because I was worried that it was just the whole thing was going to be finicky. I was going to waste a bunch of nights. Turns out I didn't, and so yeah, I'm a lot more excited about getting the HyperStar out. For I think upcoming, I'll probably use it a lot for these comets that are coming by, and I think HyperStar is a great use, or the comets are a great use for HyperStar. So I'm going to swap them out now. Just finished collecting the data on those 2 targets that we're going to be imaging to compare data sets, and yeah, we're going to take the HyperStar off the top here. We're going to use the same camera at native focal length. Off of here. We're not going to reduce it at all. We're just going to, oh, it's a little hazy. It's getting pretty dewy out there in Southern California. We're going to pop this original secondary mirror back in. It's kind of tough to do this one-handed, but it really isn't that hard of a process. You just find the little alignment screw, and it'll sit right in there. Put your retaining ring back in, and you're good to go. I'm going to mess with the backspacing here off the rear cell. I got to look up exactly what the specs are, but I'm going to use the same camera and the same filter back there. Yeah, so we'll get this out onto the stars again and collect some data on the same targets. One of the targets was really meant more for native focal length and one was really meant more for HyperStar, but I kind of wanted to see what it was like to do both targets with both setups. So next time you see me, we'll have had all the data collected. That was one of the super zooms that I'll post on like my Instagram or on my YouTube channel. But I really want to get into these images here. So this is the veil at native focal length, and I zoomed in. You know, you have to pick a target, right? This is how zoomed in it is. This is all of the pixels straight off the camera. You can see there's not really any sort of coma or weird distortions in the corners. The edge is really good about cleaning a lot of that up. And you can see how delicate all of this filament structure that it captured is. And this is with the same amount of time under the night sky as the HyperStar, which we'll switch to right now just to give you a comparison. So for the Veil Nebula, it's pretty easy to say, hey, you probably want to use the HyperStar for this. You can capture the whole thing. But it really does give you insight into these really small, delicate areas if you shoot them at native focal length. So this is the difference here between f2 and f10 with the same aperture. And I want to give a sense here of what it's like, what the actual difference in field of view is. So I'm overlaying, and I've aligned it roughly by eye, the image. You can see that dark little square. That's the image straight off of the f10 side overlaid onto the f2 side, and we'll zoom in a little bit, but you can see how tiny that view really is. Now this target is the Bubble Nebula. This is the f10 fully zoomed in view, and it gives you a really nice structure and detail view of the bubble and why we call it a bubble. You can start making out some of the nebulosity in the corners. Again, the stars in the corners all look really good. So for something like the Bubble Nebula, depending on, this is your artistic choice. If you want to zoom in and show the detail, this is one of those targets where f10 native focal length on something like the EdgeHD really does show its worth. You can zoom really far in here and start seeing all of this detail. And again, this is shot with the same amount of time as the HyperStar image, which I'll switch to right now. And you can see in the HyperStar image, it's harder to make out the bubble. It looks a lot smaller. You can see it in the middle there. A lot of it is this big, wide open star field. There's sort of another interesting object over in the bottom right. There's a star cluster in the top. And so, you lose a lot of the detail, but you also gain a lot more sort of field of view. And the amazing thing is that with one telescope and an accessory, you can get both of these from the same optical tube assembly, and there's not much on the market that'll do this. And I think this has always been one of the big value statements about Celestrons that are sort of HyperStar compatible. And here's that same overlay again. So I'm fading in the native focal length image, and you can see it's darker, but it's definitely more detailed. And when we start zooming in, the differences look even more apparent. So let's start bringing that in. And what you can tell really easily is how just small the stars look in the zoomed in image at native focal length, and just how much more detail there is. What you can also tell is how much of that really faint nebulosity that we captured in the f2 image with HyperStar just isn't there in the image at f10. And again, these are those trade-offs. Do you want super zoomed in finesse, or do you want really bright, very big pictures? In conclusion, it's amazing to me that this one optical tube assembly can get me both of those sets of results on the same night if I want. And 8-inch SCT is one of the best beginner scopes that I think I can recommend to everyone. And you'll see why when I dig into the next part of these series where we start doing some planetary imaging. And for planets, this thing is one of the best tools you can buy. And what we're starting to see here is that with HyperStar, this thing will do deep sky no problem. Thanks for watching. For Deep SkyLabs, I'm Francisco. Like and subscribe, share this with anyone you think might find it interesting, and clear skies.